Good morning. Thank you for joining me for Walking with the Word. Today I want to talk about 3 things that will wreck relationships, and particularly our closest relationships. It could be a husband or wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, fiance, or it could be maybe a sibling or a parent or someone else we're close to, like a really good friend. But if we let these things come into our relationships, they can really damage those relationships. Maybe you don't even have a particularly close relationship at the moment, but then this could be useful because maybe you'll find a close relationship in the future. You might just be distant from people at the moment, but it's quite important to work on our characters and grow and develop, because it's important that when we do find those sorts of relationships that we honour them and look after them. And to be honest, if you're feeling alone, you've not got any close relationships at all, whether it's with a sibling or a parent or a friend, I'd encourage you to reach out to people and build bridges, because we all need intimacy in our lives. We all need these sorts of close friendships. But there are 3 things that we can have in our character and in our lives which will wreck and damage relationships. And today I'm going to look at the 3: pride, entitlement and insecurity. And I kind of want to pose some questions to get us to reflect and see if these might be a problem for us. Now, if you answer yes to the question, that doesn't necessarily mean you do have a problem with the thing, or even if you do have a problem, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a big problem. It's just a thinking point, a point to help us start reflecting. So, starting with pride. Pride is one of those things which is often used positively in society. We should be proud of who we are. It's good to be prideful, but often in the Bible and in Christian circles, pride is put negatively, and I think the reason for that is it kind of puts the attention wrongly on yourself, and there's a sense of feeling that you're better than someone else when you're proud, and that's the kind of pride that Christianity teaches against. So let's talk about that kind of negative pride, where we kind of think we're better than other people, and if you do that in a relationship, that's really bad. Do you either think you're better or your ideas are better than the other? Now, sometimes it may just be the case that you do actually know something better. You either have a better idea or a better insight or a better way of doing something. I'd encourage you, if that's the case, think about ways of showing that gently. Think about ways of being loving in the midst of that and not putting the other person down and making them feel bad. The second one to do with pride is, do you own your mistakes? Are you willing to hold your hands up and say, actually, sorry, I got that wrong. This was my mistake. And it can be really hard to do this, especially if it's a mistake that's obvious or there are big consequences. Just being willing to own a mistake is difficult. It's challenging. It's being willing to take the blame, at least in part, for something that's gone wrong. And following from that, are you willing to apologise and use the S words? Are you willing to say sorry after a mistake? So those are some kind of checkpoints to see if pride is a problem in relationships. It can also carry on. If you're trying to defend yourself, that can become a prideful thing. In arguments, often I find that the worst parts of myself, the pride, come out because I don't want to be wrong, and I don't want to be humble. And pride and pride and humility are in opposition, and it's just so important to be humble and not be prideful in relationships, and that's something I think we have to constantly work on and go on a constant journey with. The second one is entitlement. So entitlement's all about what we feel we're owed, what we feel like we have a right to. So the first question is, when you do something good for someone else, do you believe that you're owed something for the thing you do? Do you do it with a sense of oh, I do this because, and you hope or expect that you'll get a certain thing back for the thing that you're doing? If so, it could be a sense of entitlement that's actually not that healthy. It's very important that when we do things for each other in close relationships, we just do it in a loving way, not expecting things back simply because we love the other person, not that we're waiting for some return or even necessary for a thank you or any particular change. Just simple love, just I love you, this will make you happy, and that's why I'm doing it, and that suffices. The second one is, do you have genuine gratitude in your heart. I'm not just saying, not just talking about saying thank you, which is just a word we say out of social convention and politeness. I'm talking about you actually really feel grateful when someone does something for you. Is there kind of a sense of gratitude and thankfulness that wells up from here? And again, if not, it could be that you just feel entitled to the thing that you're being given. So reflect on gratitude as well. Is it coming genuinely from the heart? And the other question about entitlement is how we judge other people's love. Do we judge someone's love through what they do or through what they don't do? When we talk about judging love, it sounds like a harsh thing to do. I'm not using judge in a really negative way. I'm just saying when we decide on or work out someone's love, are we looking at what they do or what they don't do? Because if you look at what someone doesn't do, you can very quickly form a picture of someone who doesn't love you, even if they're doing lots of other good things. So it might be that you have in your mind, oh, if this person loved me, and you're thinking this at the start of the day, they'd do A, B and C, and then they don't do A, B and C, and you think they don't love you, and they wake up at the beginning of the day thinking, okay, I do love this person, so I'm going to do E, F and G because I want to show them my love. While they're looking for A, B and C and you're busy doing E, F and G, they'll never feel loved and they'll never see love. So the challenge here, and this is very important when we're talking about entitlement, is only to look for what someone's doing, not for what they're not doing when you're trying to work out whether they're loving you. Because people show love in different ways. There's a beautiful book called The Languages of Love that talks about the way that people tend to have a particular prominent language of love, and it talks about things like acts of service, quality time, gifts, physical touch, words of affirmation, and these are ways that people show love. Someone, for example, might be showing love through these acts of service, tidying things away and just helping in little ways, and they're doing that because they love you and they want to express and communicate love. And you might not even recognize that if you're speaking a different language. You might be thinking, well, when was the last time they brought me a gift? Look at what they do, not what they don't do. Learn to speak each other's languages of love, and we'll begin to see the love that really is there. The third one was insecurity. Now, insecurities are really difficult. They're hard to pin down. I think we all have them to one degree or another, and they can really affect relationships. They can really wreck relationships if we don't keep them in check, if we don't identify them, and if we let them kind of rule and guide us. So the first question about insecurity is, do you let your fear of rejection override your compassion when you make choices and when you act and do things for someone else? I'm just going to say that one again. Do you let your fear of rejection override your compassion in situations? And this could be particularly true in a kind of tense, challenging, stressful situation. Would you act out of fear and insecurity and this fear of rejection, or are you just genuinely thinking about the other person and about their needs? It's really challenging, but one of the insecurities can be to do with being rejected, and that can run really deep. And if you've got that, I'd just challenge you to kind of pray and ask God to help you search your heart and bring it out and help you deal with it and help you heal from it and help it become something that doesn't damage your relationships. The second one is, do you recognize your worth? Do you identify your worth truly in who you are? And this is a really difficult one, because I think some people just don't feel like they're worth it on their own, just who they are. They feel like they've got to do or be something or someone, and if they can't do that, then everything shatters and the impression shatters and they're not worthwhile anymore. And it's so important, if you're listening to this, you are worth it on your own, without doing anything or saying anything or being anything, just for simply who you are. You are valuable, you're precious, you're worthwhile, just for simply who you are. Now, that's not always the case. Some people will be the kind of people who very much who they are compels them to all sorts of actions, and they do and love and give. So just because you're the kind of person that does lots of good things doesn't mean you're doing it out of insecurity or a wrong motive. We've got to ask God to help us search our hearts and draw our motives out and help us identify our own insecurities if there are any. but it's just something to be aware of. The final one, and this causes loads of problems in relationships, is how we respond to criticism. So when someone says something negative, and very often I think in relationships we build up this impression of who we want to be, how we want to be seen, almost like an identity within the relationship. I am the person who, and some things that you're good at. And then when the other criticizes that, it shakes an insecurity in you, this perception that you want them to have of you. And that's an insecurity. We can't take criticism. A classic situation that you just see portrayed in so many films and comedies and playing out in real life is with guys driving, right? Guys, we love to be good drivers, and we want our wives or spouses or girlfriends or other people in the car with us, we want them to trust us and not criticize our driving, yeah? But how many times does it play out where a guy's in the car driving along, the wife spots the husband and says, oh, watch out for that, and the guy's like, nope, saw it, and gets his back up. There's no big argument there, but it just creates this kind of relational tension because he's got his back up over it. And when you actually think about it, it may well be, even if he's a good driver, that he didn't see that hazard. There may be one day where he just doesn't spot it, but because he's let everyone around him know they're not allowed to say anything or criticise his driving, no one's watching out for him, no one's willing to say anything, and he misses it, and someone could get really hurt, someone could even get killed, simply because he's not willing to take criticism. So my challenge there, I think that portrays the importance of kind of being willing to listen and not let insecurity and criticism stop us from being better people, is to listen to the people around us. You might not think that sounds plausible, you might not think that sounds realistic, but genuinely, things when you're driving along 40, 50 miles an hour, hazards can come so quickly, and just having someone else who knows they're safe to speak out around you and spot a hazard is actually a really useful thing in a car. And it's something we should welcome, but it's like this perception of ourselves, this idea that we're the best driver and we can do it and we've got it. Shouldn't come above that, and I just think that's an interesting example. So rather than bringing social tension into your car by rejecting it and feeling criticised and getting angry, or just kind of putting the comment down really quickly, doesn't help. We should be welcoming criticism in a way, because it actually helps everything and everyone around us. It helps people grow, and in the case of the car example, it improves the safety as well, and that's obviously a hugely important thing. So before I wrap up, I just want to say that these things aren't exclusive. There are other things that we can say and do and be that can damage relationships. You might be feeling like, oh my goodness, this is really negative. There's so much negative stuff here. If it's not just this stuff, other things can damage too. What chance do relationships have? They have loads of chance. Now, the good news is that if any of these things are true, if there's grace and love in a relationship, it doesn't mean the relationship's going to crumble or damage. All this will do is it'll give you indicators of where to work and build and continue to strengthen that beautiful building that is your relationship. It's not just suddenly going to crumble because you or your spouse might have some of these things in their lives. Another point is that these things are for us to deal with in our own lives. I would challenge you not to see yourself as someone on a project to change your spouse or your partner or to alter these things in their lives. Just work on yourself and let God work on you. Do that in the power of God and the power of His Spirit, and that'll be an example to your spouse. When the Bible talks about changing people who are close to us for the better, it's not through trying to be the one who lords it over them or steps in or intervenes, or we don't become a doctor to that person. We just look at ourselves and we set an example through the way we change and kind of look into our own lives and reflect and change and repent and we're transformed. And the final thing is, some of these things that I've challenged us over could be immediate, kick-in instinct things that your first reaction is just to go like this or to think this. If that's the case, again, don't worry. The point is, being aware of it helps us start a reflective process, and we can think. So if your first reaction is this, and then you realise this is not a good thing, take some time, reflect, alter your views, and then you'll act in a different way. So the idea here is that this just gives us time and headspace to think and learn and act better. I'd love to pray with you guys. Father, I just pray for a blessing over anyone and everyone watching this, that all relationships would be guarded and protected. We pray for truth and healing and forgiveness and grace, Father. Thank you for blessing us with intimate, close relationships and people around us. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay guys, God bless you. Have an amazing day. See you tomorrow.